Hi, everyone. Welcome to July 27, 2024 Dojo. This is me, Intrepid Bodies, also known as Hoda, and I'm here holding space with and for Gaia Priestess. And yeah, today I would like to hold space, I think, just to see where this conversation takes us. And before we dive in, I would like to hand the mic over to Jess to introduce herself, her work, and share with us anything else she would like us to know.
Hey y'all, thanks. Hold up. Hey y'all, I am Gaia Priestess. I am Gaia Priestess, Jessica, also known as Jessica. I am excited for this conversation, also to see where it leads us. I often say I have so much to say but nothing to prove. So we're gonna see how that translates here. I am a subtle energy healer, a Reiki practitioner. I am a spiritual herbalist, a medicine woman, um, a healer. I am all of the things, and then some. And yeah, I'm excited to have this conversation. I feel like it's about time. I'm also a podcaster, um, and yeah.
Beautiful, Jess. Thank you for introducing yourself. And I'm glad that you went ahead and named all the things that you do because that actually is my first question about your work. I was curious, like, what inspired you to go into the direction that you went into? And yeah, I guess I'll just start there.
Can you repeat it one more time? You asked what was my
Yeah, for sure.
direction.
Yeah, because you talked a little bit about where you kind of named all the things that you do as a medicine woman. And I think I was curious about what led you towards that path, towards being a medicine.
Good question. I feel like I've always had this I've always had this fuck the system rebellious spirit, right? Um since I was little, and I feel like the older I got, the more I honored that part of me. And I come from a long line of medicine women, honestly. Forgotten medicine women. So I feel like part of my work here is remembering the medicine that's in my blood, in my bloodline, that's running through my veins. Um, and I honestly, for me, working specifically with herbs started directly from, I want to say, I remember very vividly a coworker of mine um, mentioning this book. And I was like, oh, cool, I'll read it. Um, this was when I first started just reading. Spirit was like, you need to start reading. And I was like, okay, give me the books to read. Um, and I was directed to Dr. Africa. And the first book, well, the second herbal book that I've ever read was Dr. Laleila's Africa, African Holistic Health, I believe. Um, and that just put me through a whole rabbit hole of watching his lectures, reading even more books, just to educate myself on herbs and just natural medicine and just nature itself. And also just learning me, right? Learning from a black man and learning about my history and our history. And that just kept opening my eyes and just consciously making me more aware of things. Um, and then from there, I started seeking out teachers um, and programs and workshops. And I feel like everything has been spirit handing me the I I I want to say the baton to keep going, because once I finish something, something else will open. Like once I finish the book, another book will show up. Once I finish a workshop, another workshop or program will pop up. Um, and I feel like that that um, has led me to the work here where I have landed now. Um, and again, emphasis on, the women that I come from, brujitas in their own way, but also so really rich medicine women. My grandma has always had some home remedy in her little medicine cabinet, for all of us. Whenever we were sick, it was always the honey with onions, which was really good, for respiratory infections and to soothe the throat and all the things. Um, and yeah, my mom too. My mom is like this. She's a different type of witch. She's the one that does the cleansing and all of the things. And I feel like all of the combinations of both of them put together has really created the woman that stands before you now.
Beautifully said, Jess. Dang, there's so much. Oh my God. Okay, so the first thing you spoke of was, or you mentioned that really stood out to me was what you said about like being from a lineage of medicine women in their own right. And for me, I can really relate to that in many ways, which I won't get into today. But what is that process like of honoring the path without any, specific? And I don't know if it was like this for you, but I know for me, it's like I knew that it was in my lineage. I'm like, I know that these women are definitely magic. Um, but I'm curious if you had some sort of like elder figure. And if you didn't, that's okay. Because I am curious, like, what kind of um, motivation or what motivated you to carve out your own space within your family's like lineage? Um, so I hope that question made sense.
Yeah, I honestly, the the spiritual path that I am on, honestly, happened really started for me spiritually in 2020, right? Before that, I want to say physically it started happening, um I want to say as back as in high school, maybe like 2000 and what year was that? 2005, maybe 2006. Um, but spiritually, 2020. I remember um, when everything was going down with, the pandemic and all of the things. And I think we were just like, we weren't even a week into um, the pandemic. when I felt like I was driving myself crazy. And it was just like so much stuff was coming up, and it was like such a big old purge. And I'm like, I cannot keep this bottled in this point in time right now. I need to speak up for myself, and I need to speak up for myself. Um, and, and that looked like, first and foremost, crying a whole lot because I didn't want to stand up for myself. I'm like, oh my God. But I feel like the tears created space for that part of me to show up. And I feel like, coming from a line of medicine women, there's also what comes with that is the silence of that. Um, and I feel like at that point, I was like, I cannot be quiet any longer. I'm not gonna drive myself crazy. I'm like, I'm gonna be locked in with the person that I have the most strife with, the most riff with, the most problems with. We something needs to be resolved. Um, so I, put on my big girl pants and I went ahead and I had a conversation with my mom, and I told her how I felt and how I've been feeling. Um, and I feel like that was the start. That was the start of, breaking those generational um, chains, removing the silence, removing the veils, and standing up, not only for myself, but for all of us. Um, and from there, it's been a lot of work. And it continues to be a lot of work because, you know, when we're brought into this plane, it's like our memories are erased. So, that act of remembering is a lot of work. And even though I know they might not see it, but I see the magic in them. It's like, I'm doing this for all of us. I don't know, this silencing thing in our bloodline stops here. I'm going to speak up, even though I am hella uncomfortable. I feel weak in the knees. I just want to go be in the fetal position and cry. Um, it starts here. So yeah, I feel like 2020 was when my spiritual my spiritual awakening began.
Beautifully said, Jess. Wow. And I know some people in the chat are relating to what you said. So I'm going to read out what Nobu said. Nobu said, telling my mom about the memories that came back to me was what really got things moving for me too. And I can definitely relate as well, because I do think that silence, in the face of oppression, especially even if it's on a micro level, right? Like thinking on the nuclear family level, can be the start of what you called like a generational curse. And I just think it's so interesting how it can really take like one person to break a cycle. And I'm also really happy you spoke to how difficult it can be to build up the gumption to break the cycle. Though I do feel you probably were hella equipped with the tools that you had, or just by trusting your intuition and purging before you did it, which feels very, very wise to me. Um, and another thing that came up as you were speaking about the pandemic, I'm like, yeah, I definitely noticed a huge swath of people who would consider themselves like highly sensitive, star seeds, intuitive, folks, people who are connected ancestrally, having what I would call like an awakening. And I think that that collective moment was incredibly like powerful. And so I'm really grateful that you shared kind of what you received from it. Um, yeah, and I guess to kind of pivot into, well, I don't want to pivot to like the next question because I have another question for me from the one I just asked. And it relates to the tutelage of Dr. Layla Africa, the value of having teachers who look like you and what that experience was like. I'm curious if you want to share more about it from the lens of like Dr. Layla Africa or just in general. Like, I know the teacher that you worked with, for example, in your herbology course is an amazing Black woman who I love her work. So I'm like, what is it like for you as somebody who's been a student, um, who's been a student to on the path to have teachers that not only look like you but reflect those inner values?
Thank you for asking. For me, I feel like one, the medicine hits different because there's this level of realness and truth, and like there's no coddling, right? I feel like other other people do a lot of coddling, and I feel like when you learn from someone that looks like you, that has, you know, the same cultural background as you, it's like it's like, yo, get it the fuck together. Get it the fuck together. Like, we, like, it's like this rigid, get it out the mud type of thing. But it's also just so loving and caring because it comes from a loving place. It comes from, even with the I don't want to say yelling and screaming, but even with the with the attitude of like, yo, we need to do better, for ourselves, because ain't nobody gonna do it for us. It's just like that love, that love, and that I don't know. For me, it feels like that divine mother, like that feminine energy, that's just here to really nurture and care for you. And it's just like, yeah, like, yes, yeah, right now it's oh, New York. And it's like, sorry about that. Welcome to New York City. um it's just like, for me, I really appreciate the realness that comes from learning from someone that looks like me. The medicine is just so rich, and it's just so, I don't give a fuck, if that makes sense. It's like, I don't give a fuck about what nobody else gotta say, but I give a fuck about our well-being. So please listen. And sometimes that could be really loud if you're not ready to listen to the message. Um, I really, sometimes it's really loud. Sometimes it's like, ugh, I don't want to hear this. Um, but I'm so grateful that even in those moments of, ugh, I don't want to hear this, I still listened because I knew where the message was coming from. I knew where the knowledge was coming from. I felt this sense of safety and this sense of, um, I just want to say, the word that keeps coming up is love. Like I kept feeling this sense of love and care, um, coming from Dr. Africa and from Miss Karen Empress Rose. Like these black people in my life that have really shed light to what it really is, honestly.
Yeah, thank you for speaking to that, Jess. And I know we've had conversations about this like off the record, and I feel like there's this place that specific lecturers and teachers come from. Like I'm also thinking of like Bobby Hemmett, may he rest in power. Um, Brother Panic, may he rest in power. And these are people who were born out of a particular, like, I would call it like a lineage. And I feel like this lineage was so boots on the ground, doing ingesting as much knowledge as they could to like disseminate it back to their communities. They were, you know, like writing formulas and stuff on like whiteboards that like people may not have understood like on a material level, but they were like kind of putting these codes in people's fields. And like even when I'm like looking at their comments, right, I'll look at their comments and see people come back like years later and be like, yo, the math you were putting down didn't make sense, but now I get it, you know, like, oh, love. And it's like that shit to me is very, very inspiring. And I think it's also it's interesting because I've worked with practitioners who look like me, and then there's this like particular experience that I have with them. And then when I think about teachers, right, who look like me, I feel like I agree. Yeah, like there's this unconditional love that they're like transmitting from. And so it seems like to me that they're more concerned with like the message as opposed to like presenting as this quote unquote like perfect messenger, right? So I wonder if that's yeah, I wonder if that aligns for you. And I know Tiff is in here. Hey Tiff, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I know that some of the people that I'm mentioning are people that you've listened to and learned from as well. So hey Tiff. I'm wondering if you wanted to share what that's like in the chat for you. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, exactly that what you said. It's about just the message getting across. And that's exactly what I feel like. Exactly what it feels like.
absolutely. Do you feel like they are also teaching from like a decolonized framework?
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what really resonated the most for me. Um really what really resonated, yeah, the most for me. Like being like really really truly understanding that this ain't about no other race, right? This is not about no other ethnicity. This is about the, how to survive, how to live, and how to thrive in America, right? As a black person,
Mhm.
right? Who's been stripped of everything. And, you know, decolonizing that and also like reclaiming that power
Mm.
back, really reclaiming that power back. And that's what I really loved about both of them. And Dr. Africa, rest in power. He did die a few years ago. um that was always his message, right? Even Dr. Sebi, speaking about rest in power
Yeah.
as well. um you know Speaking about his with how he cured things, right?
Mm.
It just really makes you wonder, like, these people can't be crazy if they over here, like, they all talking about the same thing.
Mhm.
Something has to add up. Like, it's not just, you know they're just randomly choosing to talk about this. It's like this is all connected. Like, in some level, some of this has to be true. And it's
Mm.
like I feel like it's our duty to want, like, not wanting is is upon the receiver, right? But it's our
Mm.
duty to dig deeper and like, okay, so where is this coming from? Like the curious. I feel like if anything, it sparked curiosity. So curiosity can widen, can open up the consciousness and the awareness. Like, okay, um, go do this. And also, really quickly, I come from the piece of cloth that it's like when you know better, you do better.
Yeah.
Um, and I can't, when I've listened to these folks, it's like, damn, well, now I know better. So, am I gonna do better? Like, am I gonna choose to do better? Or am I gonna choose to continue to do the BS? Um, so yeah.
Absolutely. That's yeah. And I appreciate you speaking to that because I'm like, that is something that I've noticed from all of them is this like explicit class consciousness that is not, that is doing everything but trying to get, especially the diaspora, to bypass how difficult it is to be a diaspora. And so I think that for me, that approach, like definitely during the time that I've kind of like gone like fell upon some of these like lectures and these teachers, I myself was like in a state or of fight or flight. But when I've been able to like sit with the knowledge or like practice some of the things that are like suggested, right? They actually have this staying power. And I think that that's why for me I call it like a lineage. Um and what else did I think that's all I wanted to say. I'm gonna read what Tiff said in the chat out loud. Tiff said, yeah, I listened to Panic and Hemet a lot during the pandy. They channeled and recorded so much info that it felt like too much at the time. Yeah, definitely. And Tiff says, but now they have transitioned. Now they have transitioned. I'm grateful they were able to get so much out in time. Tiff also says, it shifted a lot for me. Some of it was entertaining and educational from my conscious mind, but the other stuff was confusing, but tickled me in the gnosis hole. That's really good, Tiff. I love that. The gnosis hole. Um, Tiff also says it felt decolonized and decentralized because they pulled from so many lineages. Ooh, I love that word, decentralized, Tiff. Absolutely. Like I think that that school of like knowledge was wholly decentralized. Like I remember like learning that these lecturers and teachers would drive across the country and just share like just to like drop books off to one another to and they would like write letters to one another and I'm like wow, like I don't know, like especially when I think about what you said earlier, Jess, about like the spirit of revolution, I actually like it's difficult for me to see that separate from like a spiritual pursuit. Um, and maybe there's something about them that balance each other out. I don't know, but they do feel really connected to me right now. Um, and yeah. Gonna ask my next question. Well, I think Nobu had a question in the chat, which was also something I was curious about. Jess is like, how has being from New York influenced your practice?
Oh, baby, New York. I love it. I love that I can say that I am a born and raised New Yorker. Um, where can I start? I feel like it has really one built my character, and also I feel like, well, let me let me back it up a little bit. I come from a Caribbean background. My family is from the Caribbean, from the Dominican Republic. And I feel like if you know anything about Caribbean folks, it's this sense of community. um, Caribbean folks, Black, Indigenous folks. Like it's just this. We have this sense of community that's just built in us, and I feel like that with being born and raised here in New York has done something so rich to my spirit, because I feel like I have I definitely walk around with the toughness that is to be a New Yorker, right? But I also have the kindest of hearts. It's like I have tough but soft skin, if that makes sense. And I feel like if I would have been born any other place, it wouldn't have been the way that you know that it is now. Like I live where people would probably consider, the ghetto. Um, However, it has been, gentrified, and there are more whites in the community. But I come where the neighborhood that I live in, the outside folks might think it's the ghetto, but I feel the safest, right? Because I know everyone in the streets, even if I don't speak to them. There's this sense of like acknowledgement, like, oh, I see you, I see you. And I feel like that sense of safety, like that sense of, I got your back. It's like an unspoken word of I got your back and you got my back. Amidst and despite all of the things that goes on, right? That's what I feel here. And I feel like that also speaks to just the person that I am. Like I don't have to tell someone that I got their back for them to feel it, right? Um, it's just like, yeah, it's just different. Like when people say, if you make it in New York, you make it anywhere. I 100% agree. Cause this is not for the weak. This is not for the weak. I feel like I've heard people say this is the melting pot where there's just so much culture and so much richness and just so much happening all the time. Um, and it's just like, yeah, like it's, my upbringing, hasn't been. I can't. I won't sit here and be like, oh my God, it's been the hardest because it hasn't. I just was, a hot ass mess. Um, but it's been, it's like this unspoken word of community here, despite, everyone being in their separate corners. If that answers the question, it makes sense.
It does. It absolutely does. And Nobu was definitely like relating to some of what you were saying in the chat as someone who himself is a mystic from New York. And I do agree, like from the times that I've visited New York, um, it's an incredibly magical city, but like the magic that's there rests in the people, is from my experience. So, um, and yeah, Tiff is talking about understanding the sentiment because she feels safe in New Orleans, and I feel very similar too. Like I never thought the land that I was born from. I guess when I started my path, I never thought that it would inform the way that I do energy work or set up like my psychic defenses, but it absolutely does. And it's so weird because when I'm in like say the mall, I feel like I have to put up way more psychic protection than when I'm going to get like Chinese food out of the hood because I'm like literally like even if no one knows me, there's like an unspoken like heart recognition where I'm like I could send out a vibe like peace peace in my heart and the person across from me will like throw me a head nod and I'm like that is a living grid. Like that means like this the grid of the land um inspirited, not just the, like not just the astral sense. It feels like, yeah, very like earth coded, and probably has a lot to do with like, especially when I think of New York and New Orleans, right? They're both port cities. And so I'm like, I think anybody who like probably had any lineage that had anything to do with on this land is probably connected to New York or New Orleans in some kind of way. Um, so yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
definitely, yes, right? Like I'm seeing Tiff, talk about NYC subway, and yeah, it's it gets busy. Um, if they be if be doing too much sometimes, but it's just like what you said, like on a on a on a bigger like on the earth grid, right? When you walk around with this sense of security and sense of safety within yourself, that sense of safety and security is reflected back. And also, just, as a New Yorker, I know my way around the subway. So I know when not to get on the train, or not when not to, but I know what trains I feel the safest in, at what time I feel the safest in. um what do I like? Do I want to travel at night, like, because some trains, do get kind of sketchy. um and it's just like those type of things that's just like, you have to be very aware of, because at the end of the day, like, I've had to take trains in the night, in the middle of the night, from like Brooklyn all the way to Harlem, and shit gets sketchy in Brooklyn, right? But it's also like, if we're gonna be talking about being mystics, right? Being witches and being energy healers, and being these spiritual beings, then there's a sense of understanding that everything that you're seeing is a spirit. And a lot of the things that go on at night, from my perspective, it's just a lot of lost spirits wandering, looking to, attach themselves to something. And if you don't have the energetic toolkit to protect yourself from it, then yes, they're going to attach to you, however that's going to look, right? Whether that's energetically, whether that's physically, whether, if a homeless person is going to come and start shit with you, like, it's just like things like that. Like, I remember for one instance, and it kind of shook me to my core, because this man was so fucking close up to my face. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? um I was in Brooklyn. I forgot, I think it was like 1 in the morning, and I had to come back to Harlem, and I was taking the C train. And you know the coming from Brooklyn into Manhattan, is the trains are pretty kind of packed regardless of the time. It's just people always outside, like always traveling and stuff, right? And for like 2 seconds, I like my mind just wandered, and there was this homeless man smack in right in my face. Um, looking really nasty, just looking real nasty. And when I look, and he's in front of me, I don't know how I maintained my cool. But I'm so grateful that I was able to maintain my cool, because I feel like if I would have reacted any other way, then would have been like that probably would have escalated to something that didn't even need to escalate to. Um, but again, I feel like, and I'll reiterate, there's like, at night there's a lot of like lost spirits, lost souls just wandering, looking, looking for a home, right? Looking for something to attach it. And if you're not aware of that, if you're not vigilant, if you're not psychically vigilant, physically vigilant, then you're prone to get attacked, right? So I'm grateful on this end that I have the spiritual and energetic tools to hold my ground and be like, listen, you know, and send that telepathic message like, don't fuck with me, because I'm not the one. Like, even with, even, and I think that's the New York in me. Like, don't fuck with me, because I'm not the one. Even with the kindness, even with the gentleness that I have cultivated throughout the years, I feel like my predominant um energetic feedback is don't fuck with me. And I think that comes from, I also feel like that comes from my lineage. Like my ancestors, like they don't play about me, and I know that. I see that and I sense that. And it's like, yeah, don't. I'm not the one.
Yeah, Jess, I feel like that's a big code because you actually answered my question that I was going to ask next. Like, how do you protect yourself in a city? And I think that it's so interesting because I'm like, I have to. Dang, there's so much coming through for me right now, but I'm like, oh my god, I so relate. I so relate, and I think also city living can like I don't know if this is the same for you, but it can kind of make your field very adaptable. Where like I've been in experiences where I'm walking through New Orleans in really like sketchy areas and I make my field like super big. And then I'm like, okay, then I walk into a restaurant and then I can like make it really small again, you know? And I'm just wondering if like it's the same for you, like you can relate to experiencing a sense of energetic dexterity, maybe, because of the way that your ancestors teach you how to like contain or expand your energy. Like, yeah, I'm curious if that's true for you.
Oof. Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you for using this verbiage, right? Because yes, it is adaptability. For a while, I'm like I find myself traveling or seeing things, and being like, am I desensitized? Like, no, I'm not desensitized. That's not what it feels like. I hope that's not what it is. Um, but it's this sense of adaptability. Yes, living in New York has definitely made me very adaptable to um to just be on my toes, honestly. Like, be on my toes and be like ready. And not in a like, oh, I'm afraid way, but in a, I want to say, the word that's coming up is cautious. Um, but when I think about when I'm thinking about cautious, I'm thinking about like when I'm envisioning is like fragility of a glass, like, tiptoeing so it won't break. But it's not that. It's like you become vigilant. You become energetically vigilant. And on top of that, the when you have the spiritual tools, right? The energetic tools, and you trust that, you trust yourself in that, right? Your fucking spirit, your guides, your ancestors, the people in the unseen realms that are working with you, the nature spirits that you commune with, the devas, the, the fairies, all of them, right? They signal you and tell you, yo, make this left turn be better, right? Turn here. Don't take that usual route you take. Turn here better. Um and when you trust that innate wisdom in you, I swear it keeps you out of all the fucking bullshit. It keeps you out of trouble. It keeps you out of like, it just keeps you out of messes. Like, when you wholeheartedly trust that innate wisdom and are on your toes and are ready to listen to it, because you know these intuitive hints be coming like a mile what is it, a mile a second? No, I'm saying that wrong, but they come like every second. And if you're not listening, if you're not paying attention, if you're constantly distracting yourself, then yeah, you're gonna probably end up at the wrong place at the wrong time. So being, yeah, come as one, stand as many. Exactly. It's like, yeah, like that adaptability, which goes with the, you know, those being able to instinctually move, right? Being adaptable is being able to instinctually move, in essence. And I feel like that's what New York has taught me. And that's why I could leave here and go anywhere and still feel safe, because I know where I come from. I know where I come from, and I'm like, I've seen it all. Like, there's nothing that can like, well, let me reel that back, because you know spirits be funny. They be like, "Oh, really? That's what you was trying to say? Okay, we got you. We got something for that ass." Um, I feel like it's definitely, made me very instinctual. Yeah.
Yes, I'm giggling at what you just said because it really do be like that. Like, I think that there's a difference between acting like you've seen it all, right? Like that toughness that's just trying to keep experience out, which I don't think you're talking about at all. I feel like what you're speaking to is like, and please correct me, right? I feel like it's like ancestral grit and like having a very densely populated, I'll say, like Akashic record that speaks to yeah, like having actually seen experiences enough to do what you said earlier, right? Like, so if you know better, you can do better. And I feel like that's different than just kind of stoically like moving through life, acting like things aren't happening, right? So I'm really happy you spoke to that differentiation. That, at least that's what it came up for me as like a differentiation between just like acting tough and then like, yeah, like a spiritual expanded sense of like, all right, I'm in this experience, and so ancestors, yeah, like show me, like guide me. And it will be those little things. Like, I've noticed more recently, like that I have been getting guidance on more mundane things. Like, yeah, like where to turn, what route to take when I'm going home, what to get from the grocery store. So yeah, I feel like what you're speaking to also speaks of this like resounding trust with your ancestral team, no matter what experience or what environment, I should say, you're in. Um, yeah.
Yeah, that part. It's like this. And even before, right? Before I had the language of ancestors, before I had the language of, spirits and angels, before, I knew who was really holding my back in these unseen realms, it was still. And let me, before I cultivated this trust, there was a lot of dumb shit that happened to me, right? Because I wasn't listening, because I wasn't paying attention, because I wanted to be fucking tough, because I was acting tough, right? And I was out here softer than baby shit. But it was just like, no, I gotta be tough because I don't want nobody to hurt me, da da da. And when the older you get, the more the more in life, the more experiences in life you have. It's like, girl, that fake tough shit is not gonna get you but so far. Real power, real like toughness, honestly, comes from trusting your entire being wholeheartedly. When you feel that inside, like, yeah, nobody could fuck with me, right? And when you are able to be like, and also, I don't have to show that part of me, even if I can, beat everybody up and do all the things. It's like not allowing someone else to take my own power away, my own grounding away, for, you know, to get a lick back or some shit. And it's like, sometimes you gotta go through shit to not go through shit again. Like, and I'm so grateful that I've been able to really learn from my experiences and have things happen to me once and be like, yeah, I'm not experiencing this ever again. This was hella traumatizing. Like, no, that's it. This was just, I appreciate that my spirit came into this field and said, all right, we're gonna learn certain things just one time and that's it. Like, we're not learning that shit no more. And I'm like, yes, I appreciate that and I love that. Like, because yeah, again, once you know better, you do better. And it's helped navigate certain things for me. And it's also, there's also like when everything is an experience. So when you close a door, you close off everything that has to do with that door, right? The good, the bad, like all of it. So there's like, I'm learning now how to integrate parts of me that I've closed the fuck off, because I'm like, I don't want to go there. I know that I could go there, but I don't want to go there. Um, so I'm learning how to now gently like integrate those parts back, and in a, I guess, in a more gentle way, but also in a more loving way and a more understanding. Like, I understand where that comes from. I understand where this stems from. Like, I understand that it's not just about me. It's about, you know, it's much bigger than me. So now having that understanding, I could move through it with more ease. I could move through it easily.
Ashe, yes. Um, that was really beautiful. I want to ask, I have two more questions, okay? And so the first question that comes up in relation to what you just said is going to bring up a little bit of a conversation we had about soul retrieval work. And I'm curious how soul retrieval work helps you balance these different aspects of yourself that are like well cultivated, right? Like you cultivated, for example, that toughness and that adaptability so that you could survive and thrive, for example. And you've also cultivated this sense of really like down to earth, in touch with nature, very like about your peace. And I'm just curious, like, if you have done soul retrieval work on yourself, and and I guess I'm curious if soul retrieval work helps you balance out these different aspects of yourself, um, so that you know, like, okay, this situation deserves this self or this face, and this situation deserves this face. Yeah, I'm just kind of curious how you navigate that and how you integrate the wisdom that comes from that practice.
Yeah, I feel like soul retrieval work has is the reason why now in this moment I feel so safe and so whole, right? Because I've been able to go back to those parts of me that I've castrated, that I've, put in a closet, locked up, and just kept hidden for so long. Been like being able to bring those parts of me back, the good and the bad, right? Has been like, yeah, that's where your magic is, baby. Like, that's where the the light is, that's what the dark is, that's where the light femme is, that's where the dark femme is. Like, that's where, the divine masculine is, like, in those parts of you that you've like put to the side because you've been hurt or other people have hurt you or taken advantage. And it's like, up until this day, like, I'm still like doing soul retrieval. Like, just the other day while I was in Chicago, I I broke down and cried so much. And in those moments where I was crying, I had to like really tell myself, yo, baby girl, I got your back. Because I saw clearly who was crying. And I'm like, I got you. Like, it's okay, it's safe, like, we got us, like, just trust me this time, like, and just reassuring myself in those moments, like, yo, I got us, because it is fucking scary, right? When you been hurt so much, when you've put parts of you away that are very delicate and pure and innocent and wrathful, like, when you've put those parts of you aside and suppressed them, and now you're like, okay, it's time, like, it's time for you to, like, I can't keep suppressing this part of me because it's very much there. Like, the pureness, the innocence, the wrath is very much there, alive, right? I can't keep suppressing this. Um I it's this level of like getting being held, being hugged, right? And I've had moments where I've had soul retrieval meditations, and I've come to parts of me that were just, sitting on the floor crying, like looking really dark. And I've had to be like, Mama, I'm coming back for you. Right now I can't, but I'm gonna come back for you. Um and keeping that promise to myself, like, yeah, I'm gonna come back to you. Just right now I don't have the capacity. And honestly, like, allowing myself the grace too, because this shit is not fucking easy. Like, going back in time to like retrieve parts of you left in relationships, in spaces, in places, like in like things that you know frozen in time. Like, it's been like, yo, like, the fuck, like, it's been a lot of work, right? But every inch of me gets to come with me on this next level, on this next page, on this next chapter, on this next leap, right? In order for me to land on both my feet. And it's like, I owe it to myself to come back to myself, like, because who else is gonna do it? Like, who else is gonna do it? So yeah, soul retrieval is definitely like big, big part of my work. going back and recollecting those parts of me.
Beautifully said, Jess. Wow. I was just kind of rocking back and forth as I was listening to you and like holding my chest because I can relate on so many levels, and I'll leave it at that. Um my final question for you, especially since we just like dipped into the past, I want to bring us into the present and ask you what actually no, I'll ask you this. If your spiritual path was captured in the image of a garden, what would this garden look like now? What's blooming in this garden? And what are you excited to cultivate next?
Oof, okay. First and foremost, my garden looks like it glows in the dark. I'm envisioning it. My eyes are closed and I'm seeing, you know, a garden that glows in the dark, this luminous in the dark. And has like this big old grandfather tree in the middle. And what have I been cultivating? I feel like I've been cultivating love, I've been cultivating safety, I've been cultivating gratitude, I've been cultivating just being authenticity, I've been cultivating integrity in here. And what I look forward to cultivating next is I feel like community is coming up. I feel like it's time that I start cultivating community, because I have the space for it. Cultivating, you know, the word that's also coming up is leadership. Because I've also like I also have space for that. Like there's so many things that I feel like I have space for it now, that I feel like I've been planting seeds. Like I've been planting seeds, to be loved by someone, to have my love be reciprocated. Because it's just so goddamn good. Like not to toot my own horn, but burr, burr. it's it's yeah, I feel like that. I also feel like my my career, like I feel like I'm at a place now where I've cultivated so much that it's time to I guess eat from my fruits, if that's the proper term. um and it's like, yeah, like I have so many I'm finally I feel like okay, I feel like what I'm cultivating now is being seen, being felt, right? I feel like I've my the irony of having luminescent garden, right, that glows in the dark, right? is, it's the illusion of, um, it's just the illusion, right? I feel like now it's time to shine and to be bright and to be, seen and felt. And I feel like I've cultivated enough space for that part of me to finally step up and be like, yo, what up? We here. We doing it, right? We are doing it. You know, I have the, like, and it's in small dosages and small increments. I do things like, even with the healing sounds that I host here, at the Broom, and with my podcast, Cultivating Inner Richness, like, which I honestly created. I feel like I created for that reason. I'm like, yo, Jess, it's time for you to be fucking seen and heard and felt. Like, stop hiding, you know, stop hiding. There's a lot that you have to offer. There's a lot there's a lot to you. Um, and, stop tiptoeing around it. Like, fuck that. Like, show all of you, show all of you, show everything you could do. I came across a video recently on Instagram, and this woman was talking about, she to paraphrase, she's like, she's like, I could do 7 things at a time. She's like, I'll do 7 things in a day or something like that. Like, just speaking to her, how multifaceted she is, how skillful she is. And I'm like, yeah, I just don't do just one thing. I do all of the things. And the beautiful thing about it is that everything is fucking connected. Like, I know how to connect everything and make everything make sense. Like, to the seeing eye. Like, everything I'm doing might be all over the fucking place. To the people looking, but it's like, nah, all of this is connected. And when I talk to people that have known me for 15 plus years, they're like, yeah, this is right up your alley. I'm like, oh, you see it? You see it too? I'm like, oh, for real? They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay. Because sometimes I'm like, yo, I just be making left turns out of nowhere. And the left turns be hitting. I'm like, okay, that was the turn you had to make. But yeah, I feel like now, shameless plug, what I'm cultivating is inner richness.
The chuckle at the end told me everything I need to know. Just that was such a complete like response. And also thank you for giving us, the opportunity to sense and feel into basically what you're cultivating, basically your garden. Oh, a golden dragonfly just landed on my car. I'm gonna take that as a positive sign. It always is when it comes from nature, in my opinion. The last thing I want to say, Jess, where can people find you? Where can members in the Broom? I know you mentioned your healing sounds and your podcast. Do you want to speak to it at a more official level so folks know where to find you?
Yes, thank you so much. Um, so I hold space here, on Sundays, 10 a.m. Eastern New York time. Um, Healing Sounds, and that's a place where we travel multidimensionally, um, through sounds and heal and ground, ourselves, in I want to say in a physical way. I feel like that space allows for us to fully ground in those moments. I consider them the magic school bus. Mrs. Frizz and the magic school bus. We always going for a ride. My podcast, Cultivating Inner Richness, you can find it on Patreon. become a cultivator, and there I show more of myself. I do meditations, sound meditations. I do bi-weekly podcast episodes, and those episodes are really just self-inquiry, self-inquisitive, I guess that's the word. And we do the work there. It's the work of radical responsibility and accountability, I like to call it. You can also find me on Instagram and Twitter, Gaia Priestess across the board. That's GAEA Priestess. And yeah, you can. Oh, what else? I feel like that's it. That's it for now. Um, in real time, in real New York time, out in these gardens, cultivating the richness in those gardens, and just being in community. But yeah, you can find me in on my Patreon, my podcast, Cultivating Inner Richness. You could find me here, Healing Sounds, or you could follow me on Instagram and Twitter. Thank you.
Thank you, Gaia. Thank you, Jess, so much for this space and for your time. For those of y'all who are here live, thank you so much for contributing to this container, asking questions, and making that beautiful chat. That chat do what it does. What did I want to say? Oh, yes. Those listening asynchronously, I also would like to thank you. If you are curious about what the broom is, you're curious about joining the broom or getting involved with the broom, or you're curious about being showcased in this way and you're a practitioner in your community in your own right, um, first I'd like to say you can join by clicking the link at the bottom of this episode, link or details. You can also find Gaia's information at the bottom of this episode details. And if you're curious about being interviewed or showcased in this way, you can email me directly at intrepidbodies@gmail.com. That's hold on, intrepid, intrepidbodies@gmail.com, or you can DM me on social media. And I just like to thank y'all again for this time. I hope y'all have a lovely whatever day it is you listen to this and whatever time it is you listen to this. And peace.
Bye.